Oh, it says I'm live. I don't know. If I don't have a counter, I just don't feel it. So, hello everybody. Welcome back to Bear Family Farms. I am JT Bear, and it's, well, a couple of weeks late, but we're finally going back to live stream on Wednesdays. And I am once again doing it through the StreamYard's free platform. So, we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Welcome to Bear Family Farms. I am JT Bear. Today, I'm hoping we can get a few of you to join me because, in theory, I can invite people now that I'm using StreamYards. Anyway, I'm hoping that today we'll get a chance to discuss livestock because, as a lot of you are probably fully aware, my long-term goals do involve moving from the half-acre homestead that we're on now to a considerably larger platform where we can get involved with cattle, sheep, and just kind of all kinds of things, really diving into the whole ranching and farming thing, which is kind of what all this research I've been doing is all about. And I guess, well, it still says there's nobody here watching. I've got kind of an opportunity to discuss just kind of my feelings on that. I do work in a confinement barn, so a lot of what I say in regards to confinement farming may be a little bit frustrated by that, and that's kind of that's just life, but that's the way it goes. But what I have learned in the last year as of yesterday working in that situation is that I really don't like it. It's not good for the animals, it's not good for the people that work there, and it's really not good for the environment. We need to get these animals out and onto the land and living healthier lives so that they are in turn healthier meat for us to consume, because when you get right down to it, and this is one thing that offends a lot of people, so I'm glad there's nobody actively watching the stream right now, because then, you know, I'd probably lose a few people on this one. But life feeds on life. It's as simple as that. And, you know, a lot of people like to try and get around that with, you know, vegetarian diets, vegan diets, and all that stuff. But even then, you're eating the plant. The plant, it was alive. The plant was feeding, you know, hundreds of thousands of little bacteria and stuff in the soil. You kill that plant so you can eat it, and you've killed off a lot of those little lives there too. So, I mean, it's all this big circle, right? The animals come along, they eat the plants, the plant regrows, everybody's happy. We eat the animal. You know, it's goes back to something I mentioned in a previous live stream about a meal per kill ratio. So I tend to think that when we're raising animals, when we're raising livestock, we are contributing to kind of a sacred chain of events, you know, and we have a lot of responsibility on our shoulders as farmers to do the best that we can to raise that meat so that it's good for the people that are going to eat it, and yet at the same time do the best we can to ensure a good quality of life for that animal, because at the end of the day, nothing should suffer so that we can eat it later on. You know, it's just ridiculous. The confinement situation I work in is a hog barn, and I can't say that the animals are suffering anything other than ideal socialism. They have, you know, a roof overhead. They've got all of the food that they could possibly want. They don't have to do anything to provide for their existence. They're living the socialist dream, but they don't have room to turn around. They don't have room to, you know, they don't have the opportunity to clean themselves. They have no experience or interaction with nature. They get quite stir crazy. You can see, you know, that the animals are going nuts in that environment, but they have technically everything they need. So it's all good and it's all legal, but that doesn't make it right, in my opinion. And I come home from work, and the first thing I do is I look at that back north field that it belongs to the RM, but it gets leased out to somebody for their farming projects. And I spend a ridiculous amount of time staring out there, imagining that I have livestock and that I don't have to go back to that same barn tomorrow and see all this happen again and again and again. Because as a person who believes life feeds on life, whether you're eating plants, whether you're eating animals, life feeds on life. I I do believe that to some degree we are what we eat. If we eat something that has had a good life, it's going to be better for us. If we eat something that has had a terrible life, it's going to be toxic to us. And we're experiencing a lot of things with this in the North American diet. It has gone to hell. Our health in general is way down. It's just, it's not where we want it to be, right? So we, as farmers and ranchers, have it on our shoulders to go out and find better ways to do it other than confinement, you know. And that's a lot of what these live streams have been about, is finding other ways to raise our crops, finding other ways to raise our animals. And, you know, something even as simple as animal rotation, moving them through your fields, can make such a huge difference, not only to your field, but to your animal, because they're not standing in that dung anymore. They're not in a field that's been grazed down to a putting green, or, you know, depending on what type of animal you've got out there. They're just not constantly in it. They're always in something fresh. They're always moving. There's always fresh life feeding your livestock, which means in the end, they are going to be, in my opinion, better for you when they are feeding you, or the community, or wherever they're destined for ultimately. So I do see there are a couple of people who have joined the live stream, so thank you very much. You know, feel free to throw a comment out there. Let me know who you are, or if you have anything you'd like to say on the current topic, which is kind of livestock and raising them in confinement versus ethical, sort of out in the field. By all means, chip in. Otherwise, it's kind of just me talking to myself. If you want to join the actual live stream, let me know. I do have apparently somewhere on this StreamYards thing. You'll notice I'm looking all around because I'm still getting used to this platform here. But I don't know. I think I might go with it. Might actually learn it one of these days, because it looks like it's going to be fun and interactive. But anyway, so yes, thank you to the two of you that I do see have joined us to watch and see where this goes. On the topic of livestock, you know, that's one thing I like about Joel Salatin. A little gossipy here, but he's a great example of somebody who is raising a wide variety of animals in a way that is healthy for them and healthy for the land. And, you know, judging by the numbers that he spouts off for the success of his farm, clearly his consumers are very happy with the product that they're getting. And he's doing everything from, you know, constantly moving his cattle. And then he's got his egg mobile, I think is what he calls it. It goes behind that, and the chickens clean up the pasture, and they're getting free feed out of that, which he, of course, is turning into eggs and creating more revenue for his farm enterprise. And, you know, it all kind of adds up around that way. And he's got the pigurator pork that he does, and they come in and they help with his composting system. And they basically clean out his barn, although it's not really a barn. It's just kind of, I'd call it a carport for cows. It's a cowport. No walls, doesn't really make it a barn from where I'm from. But then again, not everybody lives in Manitoba, so there's that. Yeah, but the way he's got it all working, you know, his cattle are working with his pigs, are working with his chickens, and they're all working with the land to rebuild it. And his land success story is incredible too. Like what he's gone from his little half an inch or so of topsoil to, you know, he's got 8% organic matter or something like that. Howdy, Doug. Thank you for joining in the chat. Nice to see you here. Hope you're having a wonderful evening out there. One of the things I find I go off about a lot with livestock, because it's kind of how I was raised, is cattle. Cattle surprise. I'm a Canadian. I grew up in the beef industry. You know, my stepfather worked for Agriculture Canada, so therefore I grew up learning a lot about cows because we were in BC, and BC's got a lot of cows for all those mountains. I tell you what. But you know what? Any animal you raise, and I was thinking about this earlier today whilst washing pig poo. Brandon, hey, nice to see you here too, and you're absolutely welcome for the shout out. Thanks for the product. It's nice to be able to make use of it. But any animal that you're raising, you know, for an income, we'll say, I think qualifies as livestock. And one of the things that I want to do for an alternative revenue source when we do get onto land is I want to get into breeding koi, which sounds absolutely ridiculous because it's pretty out there for the average farmer does not plan to make a lot of money breeding koi. But When you get right down to it, I'm having a hard time finding a North American supplier, which means there is an open market because people have these things in their gardens. And some of these fish, itty bitty fish, sell for a lot of money indeed. And a fully grown, like sexually mature female koi can put out an awful lot of eggs. So from your breed stock, 2 or 3 animals, you can potentially have 20, 30,000 assailable animals from that. To me, that's livestock. Call me crazy, but you know, it is. And that is also kind of one of the points that go with livestock. And people say you can't really make a lot of money raising them these days, but I think that has a lot to do with passing the guilt along to other people. I've noticed around here, again, we'll get back to the cattle because there are no koi around here, but around here, there's a cow-calf operation, and they raise that calf up for a little while and wean it, and then they sell it off to the next person who kind of grows it up for a while, and then they sell it off to the next person who puts it in the feedlot, and then they sell it off to the person who actually butchers it. So, you know, we've got cow-calf, we've got feeder, we've got feedlot, and then we've got actual sales. We've got at least 4 different hands that have to be greased by that cow along the way. That does not provide a lot of income. However, if you were the cow-calf person and you fed it on your field, so you're also the second person, and you fatten it because it's grass-fed and you've got the right kind of genetics to make that work, now you've got 3 out of that. All you really need to do is slaughterhouse and butcher it yourself and provide your own market, and you've keeping all of that money. So really there's 4 times as much money in each calf if you just go all the way with it. I think it's pretty much the same for anything. You know, look at chickens. I was having an interesting conversation with Eric Hale a while back about the cost of chickens at his local Big W versus the cost of buying a chick to raise. And, you know, according to the numbers that we were looking at, it was actually more expensive for him just to get the baby chick than just to go off to the box store and get the ready-to-cook chicken, which is ridiculous. But that's the biggest expense in raising meat chickens, is buying the chick, right? Excuse me. I've got a little brochure here right by my desk because I'm always thinking about this stuff for the local hatchery. And when I say local, I mean it's about an hour's drive away. But that's where we got our chickens that we're running with outside right now. And I got to say, 10 for 10, all were females. 10 for 10 are still alive. We've had minus 40 with wind chill out there, and I've still got all 10 of my chickens. So that hatchery has done well by me, and I will continue to use them in the future. But if I were to get, let's see, I've got this written down here somewhere. I hadn't actually planned on going into this today, but while we're at it, right? If I was to get 10 Cornish cross, you know, which is basically our standard meat bird up here. I think that's standard meat bird everywhere, at least everywhere in North America. So $2.77 just to get the chick, itty bitty chick. And then I've got to raise it up and feed it and all of that stuff to try and make my, what, $10, $15 for selling a fully grown and then slaughtered and then plucked and then cleaned chicken, right? So right off the hop, I've only got like $12 profit. You got to buy food for that chick all the way along. So, you know, every bag of feed you buy takes away from your profit more and more and more. And I can totally see the perspective of it's just plain cheaper to go out and get these birds. But these birds have been raised in those situations where they're not paying for the initial chick feed because they're doing their own breeding. They're really not paying anywhere near what we pay for feed because they're making their own feed supply. Like, they can afford to undercut us left, right, and center, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it except take pride in what we're growing. And in my case, that's what I'm going to do. I will pay my $2.77 for those chicks, and we're going to try. I hope we get away with it. It's only like a 12 or 14 week proposition. So we're going to try building a Joel Seligman style chicken tractor, a little bit smaller because I don't need as much space, and putting 10 to 12 meat birds in there over the course of our summer season. Then before the snows come, those chickens should be fully raised and ready to slaughter. And in theory, we should not have exposed them to too much public scrutiny. So hopefully we will have gotten away with that. Now, I could go out and I could buy 10, 12 birds for, you know, $100, $150. I'm sure it would cover the cost of all 10. And, you know, feel pretty good about that. We've got chicken in the belly. So, you know, chicken soup, fried chicken is all those things you can do with chicken. And that's great. But I can go out and I can build a chicken tractor and I can take the time to get the chicks and I can feed them. And it's going to cost me more-ish. But at the same time, it might cost me less because they're not going to be only eating commercial feed. They're going to be eating the bugs that are in the field. They're going to be eating the grasses and the clovers and all of the various things that grow out there, the dandelions. These chickens that we've got, the laying hens, have given me a really good opportunity to see just how much a chicken is willing to eat. If they can get it in their beak, they're going to give it a go. And, you know, if they like the taste of it, they're going to go back at it. So I think a lot of the feed for the later half of our meat birds' lives, right? It's not the first half, but the second half, is going to come from the wilds, you know, like we feed the laying hens in the summertime. So I think if we get enough of it from that, we might actually end up saving money in the long run per bird versus buying it at the J&P. But I know, you know, I think we might save, but I know we are going to get a better quality of meat and a healthier product to feed the family out of the ones in the yard. So for that, I'm willing to take the risk of exposing the fact that we have way more than 3 chickens here already. And now I want to double those numbers. And actually, it's worse than that. I kind of want to triple those numbers because we had talked about getting some black sex lynx chickens last year because they kind of look like crows, you know, little emo chickens running around. And I wouldn't mind adding, you know, a different type to our laying hens every year so we can kind of keep track of how many years we've been at it based on how many types of birds we've got. And it's just nice to see the variety out there. So there's that. We've also discussed getting Easter eggers this year to add to our laying hens. But that, you know, with the same company, that works out to be $73 for 10 birds. A little bit crazy. Not quite sure. But, okay, again, we're looking at in the long run. Those eggs are worth approximately 25 cents each. Okay, so 10 birds right now are just over, like giving us just more than enough cash to cover their feed. So great. But if we add another 10 to that situation, then we might get more eggs. We might get more consumption. I just don't know how that's going to work. Doug, yes, and chickens are good workers, compost eggs and meat, and they easily make their own offspring. Yes, well, I would love to have my chickens making their own offspring because there are at least 2 of this last batch that I would consider to be broody. Now, I don't have an overly well-developed chicken tender's eye, but these girls are always keeping those eggs warm, making sure they don't freeze for us if nobody's checked them in the last couple of hours, and it's pretty rare that one or the other of them isn't in the nesting box. So I think if we had a rooster and we had fertile eggs, they would be happy little mother hens, and that would be fantastic. However, if we have a rooster, that is, I think, the best way for me to get busted on having more than 3 chickens in town because, well, I'm well and truly up and on my way to work by the time he would be getting up to announce morning to the neighborhood. Most of the neighborhood wants to sleep later than that. Excuse me. And that is, I think, one of the reasons, one of the only logical reasons for that matter that is cited as to why they want to keep chicken numbers down in the community. I kind of think it's a crock at the same time too, because I mean, you live in a small town in the middle of the prairies, in the middle of nowhere, like half an hour from anywhere, an hour from anywhere, serious, like you should be able to have livestock. You know, there's a community 2 towns up. You can have 2 sheep. You can have pigs in town. They don't care. Just do whatever you want. Just don't take off your neighbors, right? And if your neighbors are upset, well, deal with it. You know, if you can't get rid of your neighbor, get rid of your pig or rooster or whatever. Excuse me. No, but seriously, I don't imagine they encourage you to get rid of your neighbors. They'd rather get rid of your troublesome livestock. But I would very much like to be in a position where we're just breeding our own to add to the flock. And that's one of the beauties of livestock. And that's what I was saying earlier, right? It's just when you're doing in-house breeding, it changes the financial dynamic completely, and you've got a much better opportunity to get more realistic profits out of your livestock. And in the case of, you know, breeding chickens, it's pretty easy to do. They pretty much take care of themselves on that one. They don't require a whole lot of feed. And once you've got a lot of them kind of in your system, well, now you can cull some of them earlier. So you've got your meat birds. You can let them go later. So you've got your soup birds. You can let them lay for the time in between. You can go, okay, well, we've got 14-week-old roosters and there are 7 of them. Welcome to Camp Freezer, you know. There are a lot of options. It's quite nice with them, actually, because they're constantly attempting to reproduce. You know, cattle are much longer weight. Sheep are half again as long. Pork, not quite so long of a wait, but they produce in vast numbers. So, all right, if you overwork your hog, you can get her to produce 2 pretty large litters per year. So that's great, I guess. You know, on our farm, again, getting back to kind of the humane treatment of livestock, our sows will be bred once a year. Our boar may get a different girl per month, but yeah, I'm with you, Brandon. Most of the time, I'd rather get rid of the neighbor too. Our boar will be getting a different lady in his pen, you know, per month as he goes along, but those ladies will only be getting bred once a year. And the things that they do for genetics to ensure the size of the litters, it's crazy at the barn. Like our average litter, in the room I cleaned today, our average litter size was about 12. The largest litter size was 16. 1-6. It's crazy. Like that's not natural. I don't see how an animal can stay healthy feeding that many piglets. And you know, again, I'm in a farrowing. They're weaned out. The hogs are gone. The piglets are gone, and I clean up the mess, right? So I get to see these sows and the piglets the last day together and kind of judge how they look. And a lot of the sows look really bad after they've had those big litters because they're not being fed enough extra food on top of that. Uncle Wimpy, my problem is my neighbors are family. Yeah, well, I kind of remember we talked about that quite a while ago. There's not much you can do about that one. You can, what is it? I told young Fuzzy the other day, it's sometimes much easier to change our own perspective than to change someone else's. But that doesn't really help in your situation because it sounds like everybody's really set in their ways. But anyway, we're talking about livestock. And there are all kinds of things that qualify as livestock, as I was saying earlier with the koi conversation. We intend to, for example, be looking into turkeys and geese and ducks and a few different varieties of chicken once we're onto larger land and we don't have to worry about these stupid bylaws. But I mean, that's just in the fowl, right? Like when you're looking at, again, it always comes back to cattle. So let's say sheep for a change. You're looking at sheep. You've got to look, how many different ways can we make money from these guys? Well, if they're hairless, you don't have wool as an option. If they're, you know, regular sheep, you do have wool as an option, but wool's not exactly a valuable product these days. So finding a good market for it kind of takes some personal online marketing of natural wool products and maybe processing it so you can get those extra dollars on top of it. Much like I mentioned with the cattlemen, you know, instead of going, or the calf going through these 4 stages and these guys each getting a quarter of the money, if you process the wool all the way to end stage, you're going to get a much better return out of shaving your sheep, right? So we want ducks and turkeys too, but no to neighbors, right? Well, neighbors, what do you do? What do you do? I thought about getting some ducks here, actually, maybe trying to squeeze them in this year, and I decided that meat chickens is a better sort of experimental. Can we squeeze these in under the wire opportunity? Because worst case scenario, I can be like, look, they're going to be gone in 3 months. So in 3 months, the problem will go away. I won't do it again next year. I promise. Yeah, my fingers may have been crossed. I won't do it with chickens next year if I get in trouble. I will go and find a couple of lambs as automated lawn mowing units or something. I will find a new way to keep challenging it until we get, you know, into that next stage, because I do want. Oh, rabbits. Yeah, okay, Brandon. Fair enough. Fair enough. What happened to getting rabbits? There's another type of livestock. There's a good prolific breeder, and they're really easy to keep. You know, small caged animals really doesn't take a lot of space. I decided not to raise rabbits for two reasons. First, I'm incredibly vulnerable to cute fuzzy things. I would probably not be able to go, this is livestock. And the second one is my kill per meal ratio. I gave it a lot of thought because it would be a really easy protein to raise, and we could fill up the other side of the long shed with them. You know, I could have quite the rabbitry here, and nobody would be any the wiser. And even if they were, rabbits aren't mentioned in the bylaw, so it's all good. But they're like the meat chickens in that way, and it's the one meal per kill, maybe two if it's just the two of us eating that meal. I'm not quite ready for that yet. I am more comfortable with the idea of dispatching a bunch of meat chickens, and we'll see how that goes. And then if I am comfortable with that, then maybe I'll get back into the rabbits thing. But until I'm certain that I can do that with the chickens, I know I shouldn't do that with something there's a very good chance of me getting, oh, you're so cute, you're just a little baby bunny, you're so cute. And suddenly I'm a pet bunny shop, you know, like, as a lot of people who have mentioned that as a concern for me, the more people that mention it, the more I start to think about it. So yeah, it's still on the potential list, but it's down the road. I like the idea of raising a boar goat, you know, something that'll give us 70, 80, 90 pounds of meat. Raising Dexter steer, something that'll give us, you know, several hundred pounds of meat. Even the kill per meal ratio on a turkey, I like a lot better, because, you know, it's really hard to eat a turkey in a single setting. Like, I can't do it. I like turkey, but I can't do it. So let's see. All dogs are smart. Hey, welcome to the chat. We're raising rabbits and have very close neighbors, so no problem. Right on. Like most people, like, how do you complain about rabbits? Unless somehow your odor is just way out of control, you got to be a really nosy neighbor to complain about rabbits. Uncle Wimpy, but with the increase of any livestock, are you taunting the predators to move in? That is a possibility, but the predators are already here. And oddly enough, I have seen demonstration of a pretty reasonable amount of respect for our chicken coop area. I see fox prints in the back field that don't come towards my fence line. I see cat prints all over the yard chasing squirrels and mice. They never go near the chicken coop. I've seen coyotes walking from our lane right down the side of the house straight into the back field and not even turn their head to the chicken coop. So yes, I'm creating more of an opportunity for them, but I'm not worried about it, because I've got a few different things to deal with varmints, you know, in that pest range that it's always open season. I have been practicing my archery for a reason. So I'm just not worried about it. Plus, we're going to be getting dogs again probably in the coming year, which means they will be marking their territory, and the predators will have that odor as their first encounter with this property, and therefore be less inclined to come on, because, well, there might be something big and fanged chasing them off. So Neo, love bunnies. Hey, welcome to the chat. Bunnies are adorable, and they do taste great. See, there is that thing, but it's just that I'm not ready. I understand how quick and easy and simple it is, and there are boards, and it's all humane, and many people would say it's even more humane than dealing with a chicken. And from what I've seen online, it certainly looks easier to clean them than dealing with a chicken. You don't see bunny pluckers built out of washing machines to make it easier, right? But yeah, we'll see. In the long run, we're probably going to do it, but can't kill cute things in mass. Haha, fair enough. Well, there you go. Yeah. All dogs are smart. Dogs, good idea. Yeah, well, I don't know if you were around when we had Lazarus, but I've always had a dog in my life. It's just, he passed away last April, and it was really ugly. He got really sick, and there were shakes, and it ended in a traumatized phone call to the vet and a Sunday trip, and he came in just to do us a solid. And yeah, so we decided we take a year. We take a year. And then we ended up doing some puppy sitting just this last holiday season, because one person's family had everybody come over and the dog needed a place to go, but the first place the dog automatically went to also had a house full of people. So they're like, could you possibly look after this little puppy for us? And she was like 6 years old, but she looked like this maybe 3-month-old golden retriever, just got the floppy paws and the big ears, and just a funny and ridiculous little dog. It was so nice to have in the house because she wasn't Laz, and wasn't anything like a dog I would keep, but we had the energy of dog in the house. So it was really nice. Are you looking at LGD breeds, Labatt genuine draft mixed dogs now? I'm missing something in your question, Uncle Wimpy. All dogs are smart. Didn't know. Poor guy. Yeah, he lived a good long life, though. Lazarus was on borrowed time from the day we met him. It was one of those things. I was out in the neighborhood that day, and I just got this really weird feeling that my dog was up at the pound, which was interesting because it had been about 1.5 years since Chance had been put down. He unfortunately got cancer, and it was a bad situation there too. But we know this obligation going in. So yeah, and it was weird. I feel like my dog's at the pound. My dog's at the pound. So I went up, and I'm looking around, and I saw this Lazarus, and I saw him, looked in the eyes. I'm like, oh shit, that's my dog. So I called up the little missus, and I'm like, hey, guess what? We're getting a dog today. They say he's got to meet the whole family first before I can take him home, but he's coming home. And yeah, well, borrowed time for the next 8 years. We had that big, beautiful sock hole of a couch hog, so it's great. Rabbits are easier to clean, says Mio. Yeah, I've like, looks like you're just pulling a sweater off of them, right? Preferred dispatching them and cleaning them over the chickens. Okay. My mom and Nana made sure I could do both one summer. Well, see, that's good. I wish somebody had, when I was younger, enforced these skills, but I think everybody really saw me as staying in the city and getting deep into computer programming and probably living in a basement somewhere with a beard this long and a stack of pizza boxes this high. And yeah, I don't think anybody expected me to make it to the country. But that's just interesting too. Livestock guardian dogs. Well then, probably. We have a farm on the way home from work that seems to be continually putting out a batch of puppies every year or so that are Pyrenees and I want to say Burmese mountain dog crossed based on the animals that I saw in the yard that day. And if I could get my hands on a couple of those puppies, absolutely. But realistically, as far as what breed of dog we are looking to probably end up getting a couple dogs off the res. Our son is staying up on a nearby reservation, and there are always puppies there. And much like livestock, I'm a firm believer in providing better opportunities for the animals that we encounter. So in the city, a lot of my dogs came off of the streets or came out of the pound or whatever. Living in a rural situation, that opportunity is not quite the same. So I'm just going to have him, after he gets hitched to his little missus, kind of keep an eye out. And, he knows the kind of crazy, playful behavior that tends to characterize my pets. And I'm sure I'll get a phone call or a message one day that my dogs are there, and then we'll have dogs again. Until then, I'm really not going to worry about it because I got bigger fish to fry. That kid's getting married in April. I keep pointing upstairs because Fuzzy has come home for the next little while. Seems like he's going to spend some time away before they get married. I think that's actually kind of sweet. Kind of weird, but kind of sweet. Because, when they do get back together for their honeymoon, they're going to have 4 months that they've been apart from each other. So crazy. But he took my den. That's why we're downstairs in the office. My den is gone. My blackboard that I find after 4 years of saying I was going to paint the blackboard, I finally painted it, and now it's gone. So there's that. But yeah, it's minor changes. It's all good. So we're at the past half-an-hour mark, and I don't know. Anybody have any questions relating to livestock or not relating to farming or not related to anything that I won't get in trouble for from YouTube. Basically becomes the open market at this point. Or if you just plain want to chat, you know, we can talk about the unibrow. I've been trashed on that over the years, but it's not so bad. Better when I don't pluck. Talk about the fact that I haven't bothered to clean up in days. Actually, it's probably been a couple of weeks at this point. I've been very distracted and busy. January has been a very distracted month. Anybody else really distracted this month? I guess in all fairness, I could say this year has been just crazy, man. But it's only been 3 weeks. So, yeah. Want to know something kind of interesting and scary? I turn 45 next week. Next Wednesday, in point of fact. So there may or may not be a live stream. I don't know. If there is, I may or may not be sober. No guarantees. And it may or may not be on this channel or JT Bear, because if I'm going to cut 3 sheets to the wind and have a good time with it, I might as well do it on the main JT Bear channel. Stinky McFarty. Well, thanks for that. I don't even know what to say to the super chat, but I will say thank you for the $2 towards the cause. I appreciate that, and it'll go into an interest-bearing savings account because that's where all of this YouTube stuff is going now. You know what's sad is that we live in a time when a savings account gives you 1% interest, and you have to call that lucky. Man, banks are the ultimate scam, but that's a whole different thing. You're going to modify your aquaponics to assist in the feed for these animals. I've actually been kind of thinking about getting some bird seed and trying to sprout it using the aquaponic water so that I've got some like microgreens to feed the chickens over the course of the winter. But I don't know about actually running it in the system. If I got some clean wheatgrass seed, that is something I would consider. But at the same time, I hear that wheat can really slow down their digestive system. And since I don't have a heat lamp or a heat wall or anything out there for the chickens, they're kind of over consuming to make up that calorie deficit that they're shivering and burning off. So if the wheat's going to slow down their digestion, I don't know if that would actually be a good thing for them in the long run. Mio, any sprouts in the Aero Garden? Yes, actually, I just noticed that today. We have, it looks like 2 of the Chocolate Carolina Reapers have started to sprout, and probably 4 or 5 of the MA Faces have started to sprout, and 1 or 2 of the Trinidad Bean. So we've got across the table, we do have some life coming up. They're not looking particularly great, but I'm going to hit them up with some fertilizer probably this weekend. I think Sunday makes a 14 cycle, so I'll just pop that in there, and hopefully we'll see a nice explosion of growth. But either way, that first round of peppers is on the grow. Fodder works good with an automated timer system. Yeah, I've seen a lot of incredible systems for growing fodder, like wheatgrass fodder and things like that. But I just, with the way the system is set up downstairs, I would have to make a very interesting sort of a waterfall thing, I think. But that's nothing new. I've kind of done that before. As the phone rings, hang on a second and I'll see if this is actually something I need to check. Oh, tragic. Sorry, folks. I need to let that just keep going, and I feel like a bit of an ass. But the individual they're calling for is not currently home, so there's that. We may or may not get a message. We'll see. Sometimes the answering machine shares. Today, it's keeping it to itself. All right. I started my onions and bell peppers yesterday, so yay. Bell peppers, nice. I have pretty much given up on growing bell peppers. That's kind of why I started growing the hot peppers in the first place, is because even in Penticton, I could not get those suckers to go for me. Like, I couldn't get them to put on the fruit, and when I couldn't get them to actually produce it all the way through, and it was just like driving me crazy. So I'm like, okay, I need smaller fruiting peppers, something that can deal with, in that case, it was the extreme heat of my greenhouse, because that was the northern tip of the desert, and my greenhouse was not auto vent. So some days when I'd get in there and open up the door and hit in the face with a sauna of like 112 degrees Fahrenheit, top out the water, because it's the only thing keeping those plants alive was the humidity in there, and those fish. It's a really good thing that I have fail safes set up for how far the water can go in any of my assorted tanks, because more than a few times has it really saved a lot of fish lives. So don't have one set up right now with that system downstairs, but I don't really need it. There's nowhere for the water to go other than back into the tank. So excellent. That's going to change soon because I need to adapt it so I can get solids filtration pulled out of there, and a few other things that I want to kind of change and build up. But yeah, at that time I might be able to add something for like a fodder system for the chickens. I still just don't know. I just don't know. Because I want to get the train down there, and now I'm thinking about moving my desk down there, and I'm thinking about putting up a new chalkboard downstairs. So my garden space has gotten strangely limited in the basement, and as an added bonus, it's getting more limited and needs to be juggled yet again, because we have to put up 3 support jack pillars in the basement because the house is sinking and settling faster than we would like. And we'd like the doors to close properly, so we have to do that. But starting onions, I don't think I've ever actually started onions from seed. You got me on something there, Mayo. I think I might have to look around and see if I've got any onion seeds. Give that a go. So all right, we're on to gardening stuff. Quelle surprise, Mr. Bear talks about gardening, but you know, it's a great return on investment. Way better return on investment from seeds in a garden than from livestock. But again, we get back to that. If you're breeding your livestock yourself, you're much closer. That's why I call the piglets at work bacon seeds, because you know they go off and they kind of get planted in these other barns where they grow up and they become bacon. And what is it, 6 months after they leave our facility, they're at a slaughterhouse. So it's really hard for me if I look at them as cute, adorable little piglets. So burger seeds, you know, it's kind of what I've been calling calves lately to kind of get myself into that mindset too. Lamb, well, I like lamb enough on my plate that I don't think I'll have an issue when that time comes. But at the same time, I like mutton too with the more developed flavor. So I am just as likely to let them live as cull them for the freezer. So to me, livestock is an opportunity in a lot of ways. It's an opportunity almost to play God, which sounds really terrible, but if you take it in the right context, it's not that bad. It's about creating life, bringing life into this world, and using that life to sustain other lives. So if I can build my herd, then great. If I need to cull so that we can eat, well, that is still good. That's just the way it goes. A lot of people look at livestock like a cash cow. And that's a terrible expression for it, but you know, they're just looking at it as something they can pull money out of, and they will continually put more money into it to try and pull that money back out without ever really considering how the beast is doing in the situation and whether or not the beast would do better and therefore their profits would do better if they just improved its living conditions, right? Goats, I want to try goat meat. Goat meat is fabulous. Mutton. Ever have a donair? That's what I was told. And geez, I'm not sure I've ever had goat meat before. Well, have a donair and you've had it, which is interesting. I always thought it was a combination of lamb and beef. They got kind of pressed together to make donair meat, but I don't know. Never actually really looked into it, which is kind of sad because, you know, YouTube and stuff, you can find out anything you really want to know. It's just not that high up my priorities. I will cook a goat and find out what goat tastes like when the time comes. And I'll be okay with that. But boar goats, right, here's a perfect example. There are pygmy goats. There are Nubians. There are so many different types of goats out there. And a lot of people are concerned when it comes to the idea of them raising goats, because goats are known to be incredibly rambunctious creatures and they like to climb and all kinds of stuff like that. In my research, I found these boar goats that kind of look like they're just not really built for all of that climbing and shenanigans and stuff. Like they'll mountain climb, but I don't think these suckers are going to go over a fence anytime soon. They're more likely to try and go through it, which is where, you know, electricity is our friend. So put a couple hot wires out there and the goat's not going through that. Train him when he's young, he's not even going near that when he's older. So Uncle Wimpy, I want goats to control my poison ivy overrunning my property. Yeah, poison ivy's a bitch. They'll pretty much eat anything, so you're pretty much good to go. It's up to you and the neighbors, though, and you know, there are a few different people out there nowadays that are like renting their goats out for that. So that's an interesting thing too. Like if a person has goats and they're in an area where you need to have the fire brush eaten down or poison ivy eaten back and controlled a little bit, there's a great opportunity. So, you know, if we get goats, then maybe we could end up doing that for, like, we got a lot of railways that go through here. So maybe we could work some things that we're cleaning the side banks, or I don't know. I don't even know. Uncle Wimpy, get one fainting goat for shocks. You know, that goat would end up in sweaters and toques and all kinds of things. I don't think it would be humane to the goat just because of what it's going to get dressed in. I think we both know that she would have way too much fun. Pajamas for goats and all kinds of things. No, I need livestock that's functional, you know, and that could also create kind of a dangerous precedent, because it's been a long haul for me and she's come so far. I'm so proud of her, but there are reasons to cull a herd. And sometimes those have to be the absolute reason that makes the decision. So I'm really working hard on training her to not get too overly attached to the animals, which is why you'll notice that we have Betty and Bunty. Out of 12 chickens, we have 2 names now. We have Betty and Bunty because they're the ones that are left over from the retirement birds, where we stupidly named them all. And now it's come time to make soup, and I just can't bring myself to do it because, oh, well, Bunty was a rock star. She laid for us. We got an egg every day out of you last winter with no heat. You're an awesome little chicken. You're my star. You know, like you develop these stupid relationships with things that you give names to. And a fainting goat, I think, would give that precedent of, oh, well, this is something it's not real. It's petting zoo livestock. Petting zoo livestock. Now, if we have a petting zoo and that's an actual enterprise on the farm, that becomes a completely different scenario. You know, we can get the micro pigs, we can get the, you know, miniature Texas Longhorn, and just the obscure, cute livestock. Sure, in that scenario where it's actually doing something fundamentally profitable, then great, because ultimately all of these livestock are still going to be eating down my grasses and my forages and, you know, all of these things that I need to control on the property. But yeah, I want to be really careful of introducing animals to our farm and homestead purely because they're cute. And she already thinks the fainting goats are ridiculously cute. So honeybees are an interesting thing. We're going to try and get some started this year as well, although we're going to take it a somewhat unconventional approach with that. We're just going to buy a hive, double stacker, 2 deeps, and we're going to put it out back by the chicken coop, by a couple of our fruiting bushes, where I have seen lots of bee activity in the past. And then we're going to just kind of leave it and hope a wild swarm comes in and finds it a good environment. Because from what I've been seeing, there are some issues with local honeybee suppliers that are giving out honeybees for a rather expensive price, and they're not necessarily built for our Manitoba climate. So if I can find some honeybees that have escaped, adapted, evolved, and become climatized, and then they move into my beehive, I think it's probably going to be for the best. So I'll be really curious to see if that works out, because I've had some feedback both ways on that. But sooner or later, it kind of seems like it should. And if we don't find something populating it by the end of 2020, then come 2021, we'll order one of those overpriced queens, and we'll do our best to make sure that hive is well insulated and she's well taken care of in the wintertime, and all of those stupid things that you have to do to care for non-climatized bees in, minus 40 with wind chill. So yeah, but excuse me. It's the hot chocolate burps. Terrible, terrible. But the idea of keeping honeybees is a perfect example of livestock, but we don't necessarily normally consider these to be livestock, right? But the idea of keeping them for the honey, keeping them for the wax, keeping them for the novelty, that's all great. But the thing that as a gardener I'm looking forward to the most is keeping them as on-site pollinators, because they're here. They're going to start their 3-mile circus, or circuits, but they're going to start their hunt for pollen from the center of our yard, spread out from there. That means my fruit got a much better chance of getting pollinated. My peppers, anything out there with a flower, gonna get hit. So yeah, that's, I think, the main excitement for me. And then probably honey, because I'm loving the whole mead thing. And then beeswax. I mean, can you get a better natural waterproofing agent? So yeah, and candles and so many other things you can do with beeswax. Lemongrass essential oil is said to attract bees to a hive. Yes, I have heard that. I'd like to actually be able to grow some just lemongrass, but I don't think our environment is really conducive to that sort of behavior. Dog bees would be great. Would you worry about any local chemical spraying? Only every time they're in the field. But right now, the one itty-bitty advantage that I get out of working in this hog barn is that my boss is one of the guys that works out in that field. So if I stress to him the importance of giving me a heads up so that I can maybe close the hive that day, and sure, they'll be agitated, but they won't be out in the fresh spray, then great. And or if I can talk him into talking into the guy who's leasing, talk him into talking to the guy who's leasing the field and asking them to maybe just give a few swipes of just give it a miss. You're not going to make that much of a difference. And that organic farmer or YouTuber guy in town, he'll make a stink, and he ran for council last time. Don't want him doing it again. So yeah, I'm hoping that I can maybe pull a couple of strings and at least get an advance warning when they're going to do a chemical spray. And if not, we're pretty active watching for the tractors out there anyway, because we don't want to be out there breathing it. And we try to make sure the girls are locked up. We tried to make sure Laz was in the house, like just everything you do, right? It is what it is. Pollinators, honey sales, wax sales. Yeah, right? See, it's all about those little tiny revenue streams that all add up in the long run. I don't know about honey sales, though, because need. I have grown so fond of this homebrewed, glorious beverage. It's so simple. Even I can make it, which says something. And yeah, it's delightful. I don't get hammered on it, but I do get pleasantly verschnickered. So that's nice. Can you opt out of the spraying, Uncle Whippy? No, unfortunately, I can't, other than just begging and borrowing or begging him to avoid me a little bit. Good to have that advantage then. Any little bit helps. Yeah, well, we'll see, right? Hopefully I can play my cards right and I can get that bit of avoidance. Be careful that the bees will go pollinate items that get sprayed. Well, yeah, right. That is a concern. Every third year is canola because, Manitoba, canola country. But it's a risk I'm just going to have to take. And unfortunately, our honey may be tainted from whatever they spray out there. Unfortunately, our bees may take a hit from whatever they spray out there. But again, if I can see that it's just like clearly because of this, then I can talk to the gentleman at work. And if he doesn't want to do it, I can talk to the gentleman above him with the field, and I can explain to him, look, this is what you're doing. And then I can start him down the path of regenerative agriculture. And that would be great, because there's a huge field out there dying because they're doing it the way it's always been done. And I mean, they do rotate the crops. We have the 3 different things that go in there. So wheat, canola, and I forget at the moment what the third one is, but that's it. It's just those 3 items. And it's pretty rough out there. Well, Mia, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful dinner with the family, and it was fantastic having you with us in the chat. Yeah, that feel, oh, like I've said so many times, I just imagine what it would be like going out there with my cattle or sheep or whatever and moving that electric fence. And yeah, it's a pain in the ass. You got to move the electric fence every single day when you're doing this mob style grazing. But you know what it's going to do for the land, what it's going to do for the pasture is providing, as far as providing feed for the animals, it's just so worth it. And when you consider how little time it takes to move modern electric fencing compared to how long it takes to earn the money to buy the feed, it kind of seems like a no-brainer. And when you're doing like just uncontrolled grazing, you set them and forget them grazing is how I kind of refer to that. You putting other things in there too. You're going to have to pay for seed every few years because they're going to overgraze some things and not graze others. So you're going to have to occasionally burn, which is terrible for the pollutants it puts up there with the amount of oxidization and stuff that goes on with that. You're going to have to occasionally put out your nutrients because you're going to have to fertilize it because it's going to look like your plants are dying out there because there's no nutrients in the field, when in reality it's just things aren't balanced. So, you know, you end up paying all of these extra things just because you don't want to go out and move a fence. No way, I'll go move a fence. Like, it just seems like a total no-brainer to me. And like I said, following the example of Joel Saladman, you know, I'll be moving a few fences. I'll probably be moving my cattle and sheep and goats in one herd. That's the goal. And I'll probably be moving a couple of different types of fowl in that follow-up, you know, cleanup crew. It won't just be my laying hens. I'll probably have geese out there because they're said to be good alarm type guardian animals. And you know, I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to try and get as much diversity into each one of these squares as possible. And if I have to move 2 squares, then I have to move 2 squares. If I have to move 3, I got to move 3. I really don't care. Right now, I mean, consider what I do for a living right now, right? I go and I pressure wash poo starting at 7 o'clock in the morning till noon. This is not a glamorous life. I'd rather move fences. And if I can move fences to replace that income, I'm a happy bear. Works great. And I'm seriously considering some of these things that people are talking about with basically you lease somebody's pasture and then you rent out your time on that pasture to other people with cows and you move their cows for like a daily babysitting wage. And that, you know, it all works out and it all balances. So like even at $1 a cow a day, which is pretty inexpensive compared to feed costs and when you consider relative gains of the animal. So $1 per day per cow. I need to move 50 cows a day to replace my average income right now. If we get up to 75 cows a day, I'm doing pretty good. Yes, it's true. I don't make a lot of money at this job. But you know what? You don't have a lot of options when you live in the middle of nowhere. You work where you can. So I would like very much to explore that yeah, leased land and rotational grazing. What do they call it? Custom grazing. That's what they call it. Opportunity. So, yeah, Uncle Wimpy. How much land am I looking at? I'm currently looking at 160 acres for $65,000. It's about a 90-minute drive away from here, and I can only look at it because, unfortunately, unless I've got 25% down, I ain't getting my bank loan on it. So. That means I'm roughly $16,499.97 short of the $16,500 I need. I'll get there one day. Save those pennies when I can. I get roughly one every couple of months, so it's all good. But from what I understand, that land price is ridiculously cheap compared to what everybody else is talking about for land prices. Like I had some guy say it's $15,000 an acre where he lives. $15,000 an acre, that's insane. How do you cover those farm costs? That's crazy. It's crazy. No. When I buy land, I am looking, if I can, to pay less than $1,000 an acre. But unfortunately, I am looking to buy it in a 160-acre chunk. Howdy, Ag Wild. Howdy, Barnyard Chicken. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, the idea of leasing land seems brilliant. It's, no risk ranching, I think. Greg Judy is the one who kind of goes on about that. And that's one of the books that I will definitely be getting an actual physical book, you can see I am one of those people. I have bookshelves, and yeah, there's a lot of clutter and junk on there, but there are actual books. And his will be up there. I'm going to be putting some of the ones from Salad Man up there. I'm going to be putting Holistic Management from Savory up there. I got a lot of these guys who have been putting the time in and taking the time to create, I almost want to say a textbook or a guidebook, but more like a workbook for us who want to get in there and follow in their footsteps. And I want to follow in their footsteps, but I don't want to do it on half an acre. I don't want to do it on 4 acres. You know, like there are lots of things that a person could do on a smaller chunk of land, but it becomes more evident and more obvious to surrounding farmers when you do it on a bigger chunk of land. And what I really want to do is change the way the average Manitoba farmer looks at their field, because I'm sick and tired of hearing about the city I was born in getting flooded out every spring, when I know full darn well that that can be much better dealt with by proper farming practices. So instead of our water building up and rolling off, our water builds up and sinks in. No more floods. I imagine the folks in Winnipeg would appreciate that too. Just a thought, you know, maybe it's because my parents live, my father lives down by the river there. Who knows? I've got my own personal reasons. Beautiful city, lots of really old architecture. It'd be really nice to save that too. I mean, granted, there are parts of Winnipeg that are kind of a cesspool, and it wouldn't be terrible if a flood wiped them off the earth. But rainbows, in theory, say that's not going to happen again. So that's a whole different conversation too. Doug, are there any government grants or anything that I could take advantage of? Probably. I have considered perhaps teaming up with Ducks Unlimited, because there are some things that they are trying to do with land that are very similar to things that I want to do with land. So I've toyed with the idea of setting up some sort of regenerative farm experiment funded by them for X years, where I guarantee I won't do any of those things that they don't want done, because I'm not going to do them anyway, right? Because like the way I want to farm says that these things just aren't going to happen. But I don't know, because I don't want to get tied into the politics that go along with all that. As far as actual government grants, you know, they talk about it a lot, and there are loans and things, but everything I've seen is for young farmers, people under the age of 40. As I mentioned, I'm 45 next Wednesday. So I have that ship has sailed. They have a lot of things for women farmers. So maybe Shocks could perhaps take advantage of them, or perhaps I identify as a San Franciscan, so, you know, just give me the grant. But really, without going into the government offices and saying what can you do and what can you not do for me, I don't know for sure what's out there. But I do know I don't want to be tied to an outside organization's perspective of how I need to run my land, because I respect authority figures, right? Like I've done security and all that stuff, but at the same time, you can respect a thing without necessarily wanting it to interfere with your thing. And that is the case here. I don't want government regulations interfering with what's going on my land. I don't want them coming in and going, oh, well, we notice you're doing this differently, and that's just not how farmers do it, so we're going to make you do it this way, or we're going to pull your grant money. I'd much rather just blood, sweat, and tears it out. If that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. And because I am looking at more affordable type land, howdy, Babette, like I say, $65,000 for 160 acres, that's less than $500 an acre, right? It's like $427 or $487 or something stupid like that. I don't have the actual figure, but you know, ultimately, I should be able to make those kind of payments towards that. I just need to suck it up and stick at a job that I hate, which is it's a big thing for me right now, because there are lessons that I've dodged my entire working life up to this point, and they continue to show up time and time again in different workplaces. So I realize now that if If I don't just deal with these things, it doesn't matter if I go to another job or not. I'm still going to have the same problem. So I stay in this hog barn situation because it's employment. Have a good dinner, Uncle Wimpy. Thanks for joining us. I stay there because it's good employment, and it's local employment. So even if I do end up with property 90 minutes away, yeah, I got a 90-minute commute to come into work once we move on to that property. But at the same time, I've got that guaranteed monthly income that's going to help me pay for that property while we're still living here. Because thankfully, this place is already paid for. We don't have to worry about a mortgage payment. We don't have to worry about rent. We took that chance when we moved from BC and said, okay, well, the money that we've got won't do anything for us long term here in BC. Where can we make this make a difference? And I searched literally Canada, and I organized places by price. I found a place that we could afford to buy outright, and I'm sitting in it now. And a lot of our friends looked at us like we were just completely insane. What are you doing? Who does that? You're moving halfway across the country. You don't know anybody out there. What are you doing? You're crazy. And I look at them like, how's your rent, man? How's your mortgage? How's it living in that city where, you know, you can't leave your bike outside, and your kid left your bike outside and it's stolen now? Well, I could have told you that was going to happen. Like, I worry about them just as much as they worry about me, but they think I've lost my mind, whereas I think I found it. It's going to be like that with property. It's going to be one of those things where people are looking at me like, why are you buying that land? You know how trash that land is. There's a reason they're giving it away. And I will look at them and go like, yeah, but how's your mortgage payment? You know? So it just makes it a little bit harder to get started, right? Because you've got to really seek out those opportunities, whereas somebody doing it in a more traditional fashion would go to the bank and get their 10%, you know, pre-approval and blah, 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 and they'd be able to be on that land for $6,500 because that's 10% down in a mortgage, right? But no, I want to do it 25% down so I can get a line of credit so I can manage those payments better. If I can only afford the interest that month, I pay the interest that month. If I can afford more, I pay more. I'm not stuck only paying up to a certain amount on the mortgage. If I win the lotto the next day after I get my line of credit, I can pay it off. Good deal, no penalties, right? To me, that's a no-brainer. It's just one of those things. But it does mean it's going to be a lot harder for me to get to that point. I fought for everything I have in life, so, you know, why stop now? And I don't have to do a lot of fighting anymore, you know? So this is worth fighting for. So totally understand that we're in a mortgage-free situation as well, right? And you look at your friends, and your friends are looking at you like you're crazy, and you're looking at them like, I'm not the crazy one here. Come on out to the farm where we can have a campfire and look chickens. And how's that monthly payment? Oh, the neighbor that you can touch their house. Like, okay, seriously, the place we moved from fence to fence to fence to fence was 33 feet across, which is not very wide, and was 101 feet from end to end, from street to alley. And we were paying about $1,000 a month for that, which was really, really reasonable compared to rents in the area, which is crazy. $1,000 a month. We were there for 10 years. That's $120,000 we paid for that place. It was already paid for by the landlord's parents. So, you know, pure profit for them. Great. They've got a fabulous setup going. I love them. Best landlords I ever had. I think they're absolutely fantastic. But I still don't care for the idea of landlords, because that same $120,000 would buy my 65, would get a house moved onto it, would get me a solar system hooked up, would get me a generator, would get me started on livestock and plenty of electric fence to keep an eye on them. You know, like, as I've gotten older, I've learned just how foolishly I've spent my money as a younger man. And what was my brilliant quote the other day? The regrets of my youth become the wisdom of my adulthood. Something like that. And I think on that note, that's probably where I'm going to leave it. Unless anybody has any pressing questions. We are at the past an hour mark, and poor Fuzzy is trapped upstairs in the den. I told him he can't come play on the Nintendo behind me until I'm done my live stream, so he's got to be going nuts by now. We got this Wii tennis competition thing going on. It's good. It's good. So yeah, and or does anybody have any opinions on how this live streaming off of The little duck site here, StreamYard.com, has worked out. I mean, in theory, I can do this, but I have totally forgotten about that. And there are so many little things that I can do with this that I'm not used to from the YouTube Hangout platform, but it does look like it's going to be a good opportunity in the long run. In future weeks, as I mentioned, hopefully we'll have more people joining into the actual chat. And I intend to go out as the weather gets a little bit warmer and try and get some, for want of a better term, stock footage of some of the farm fields that, well, I'm complaining about. And at the same time, some of the livestock where I'm really proud of the people around here that are going against the grain. And, you know, they're getting, everybody's wagging their fingers at them and shaking their heads. And I'm sitting there driving by going, yeah, represent regenerative ag. So yeah, I want to get some of that so I can show you just what these guys are doing that I'm talking about. And excuse me, excitement, got a frog in my throat. We can run that as share screen, I think. So it'll be interesting. Barnyard Chicken, you like StreamYard, okay? Excellent. Because the other part of that is I am seriously thinking about making a monthly financial commitment towards this. So I just don't know about that either, but it really looks like it'll be worth it if I do more of these live streams. And I really do enjoy these chats with y'all. It would just be, I think, a little bit more fun if there was other boxes here, you know, we can split it up. Like, can I do that? No, I can't do these things. Because I don't have someone else here to play with, I can't split my screen right now. But yes, it would be nice to be able to split the screen and have an actual conversation. So perhaps next live stream on the farm channel here, I will just start out the conversation by throwing the link in there, and all are welcome. Scroll up and join in. Of course, I will have to kick people out if they get ignorant or nothing or anything like that, but I don't really think that's going to be too much of a problem. I find people that visit my channel are just wonderful, respectful, good people. So on that note, I love you all, and I hope you have a fantastic evening. Thank you so much for joining me on this particular live stream discussing livestock, property, government grants, and a wide variety of things. All right, take care, everybody. I will see you next time. I guess that's kind of the way that goes. Next time, this time.